चित्तकामं भजे रामं घनश्यामं गुणधामं रम्यनामं क्षेमं मुखसोमं रिपुभीमं चित्तकामं भजे। वीरं मेरुधीरं सुकुमारम् आत्मसारं शूरं सर्वाधारं सद्विचारं शुभाकारं भजे रामं घनश्यामं गुणधामं रम्यनामं क्षेमं मुखसोमं रिपुभीमं चित्तकामं भजे। ध्यानं चित्तलीनं स्मृतिमानं दयास्थानं ज्ञानं स्वयं भानुं कामधेनुं श्रुतिमानं भजे रामं घनश्यामं गुणधामं रम्यनामं क्षेमं मुखसोमं रिपुभीमं चित्तकामं भजे। वेदं वेदगीतं निजबोधं विश्वातीतं मोदं दशनादं कविनोदं मृदुपादं भजे रामं घनश्यामं गुणधामं रम्यनामं क्षेमं मुखसोमं रिपुभीमं चित्तकामं भजे। श्रीशं श्रीनिवासं मन्दहासं चिद्विलासं भासं चित्तहासं अच्युतेशं भवनाशं भजे रामं घनश्यामं गुणधामं रम्यनामं क्षेमं मुखसोमं रिपुभीमं चित्तकामं भजे रामं घनश्यामं गुणधामं पिबरे रामरसं रसने पिबरे रामरसं रसने पिबरे रामरसं दूरीकृतपातकसंसर्गं दूरीकृतपातकसंसर्गं पूरितनानाविधफलवर्गं दूरीकृतपातकसंसर्गं पूरितनानाविधफलवर्गं पिबरे रामरसं रसने पिबरे रामरसं रसने पिबरे रामरसं जनन मरण भय शोक विदूरं जनन मरण भय शोक विदूरं सकल शास्त्र निगमागमसारं जनन मरण भय शोक विदूरं सकल शास्त्र निगमागमसारं पिबरे रामरसं रसने पिबरे रामरसं रसने पिबरे रामरसं परिपालित सरसि जगद्भाण्डं परिपालित सरसि जगद्भाण्डं परमपवित्रीकृतपाषण्डं परिपालित सरसि जगद्भाण्डं परमपवित्रीकृतपाषण्डं पिबरे रामरसं रसने पिबरे रामरसं रसने पिबरे रामरसं परमहंसाश्रमगीतं शुद्ध परमहंसाश्रमगीतं शुकशौनककौशिकमुखपीतं शुद्ध परमहंसाश्रमगीतं शुकशौनककौशिकमुखपीतं पिबरे रामरसं रसने पिबरे रामरसं रसने पिबरे रामरसं रसने पिबरे रामरसं रसने पिबरे रामरसं सूरजमङ्गल सोमभृगु सुत सूरजमङ्गल सोमभृगु सुत बुध गुरुवरदायक तेरो बुध गुरुवरदायक तेरो राहु केतु की नाही गम्यत राहु केतु की नाही गम्यत संग शनीचर होत कुचेरो जानकीनाथ सहाय करे जब कौन बिगाड़ करे नर तेरो जानकीनाथ सहाय
Om Namo Narayanaya, dear sisters, brothers and loving children. Vasudeva Sutam Devam, Kamsa Chanuramarthanam, Devaki Paramanandam, Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum. I salute Lord Krishna, the world teacher, the son of Vasudeva, the destroyer of Kamsa and Chanura, the supreme bliss of Devaki. It brings me immense joy on behalf of the officials of the Ramakrishna Center of South Africa, Phoenix, Johannesburg Subcenter, to extend a warm and cordial welcome to each of you to today's online program commemorating the auspicious occasion of Krishna Ashtami. Sri Krishna categorically declares in the Bhagavad-gita that he is the original compiler of Vedanta philosophy and therefore the supreme master of Vedanta. The wordings from the articulations of Sri Krishna are as follows. I am present in everyone's heart as the Super Soul Paramatma. All fruitive rewards are given by me. From me comes past recollection, and it is I who gives them knowledge and forgetfulness. I am not only present as the all-pervading Brahman and also as localized Paramatma, but I also appear as incarnations for delivering all souls of this world. I am therefore the instructor of Vedanta philosophy, and the Vedic knowledge is meant for knowing me only. As I am the Vedanta compiler and instructor, nobody knows Vedanta philosophy better than me. The Johannesburg Subcenter has embarked on a milestone project to build an ashrama complex in the name of our revered master Sri Ramakrishna. We have successfully completed the rezoning process and have commenced with fundraising activities. We humbly appeal to all of our devotees, well-wishers, donors for your support as we take our next step in this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity of building an ashrama complex. If you would like to donate or participate by offering your skills in any of these activities, please send us a message with your email address and contact number on the live chat, or by emailing the Johannesburg Subcenter on johannesburg-phoenix.org.za. We will now commence with today's program.
अवतार वरिष्ठाय रामकृष्णाय जननी शारदा Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare
Achyutam Keshavam Ramanarayanam Krishna Damodaram Vasudevam Hari Sridharam Madhavam Gopika Vallabham Janaki Nandanam Ramachandram Bhaje Achyutam Keshavam Satyavamaadavam Madhavam Sridharam Radhika Radhikam Indiram Indiram Vedasa Sundaram Devaki Sridam Bhagavat Dosavigraham Vandayamalayam Shobhitorastatam Lobitam Vindayam Varyasham Prade Tunjita Tunjale Rajamananam Ratnamaulim Prasam Kundaram Gandaram Arati Yonaram Sankadam Mojanam Chintini Manjuram Shamalam Kambade Krishna Ashtami Yapate Vishwadam Premata Premaham Purusha Sastram Nitana Sundaram Nitridashavaram Tasya Vaishnavate Jayate Sattvaram Tasya Vaishnavate Jayate Sattvaram Tasya Vaishnavate Jayate Sattvaram.
ॐ स्थापकाय च धर्मस्य सर्वधर्मस्वरूपिणे अवतारवरिष्ठाय रामकृष्णाय ते नमः. Namaskar to all of you. Welcome to the week-long celebration of Krishna Janmashtami. We are preparing for the Krishna Janmashtami. So now, as usual, I think you are all ready with the puja articles, ready to perform the puja. We shall begin the achamanam. So before that, just we will chant some Ganesha mantra to remove all the obstacles, and also the mantra of the Guru. Then we will start the proper thing. I'm going to repeat it. If you know the mantras, you can also chant with me, or just remember Lord Ganesha and pray to him that he will remove all the obstacles. Om Vakratunda Mahakaya Koti Surya Samaprabha Nirvignam Kurume Deva Sarvakaryeshu Sarvada. Now Lord Ganapati has come to our heart and he will be removing all the obstacles. Now we are going to remember our Guru, our Mantra Diksha Guru, and Ramakrishna also. We can remember the same thing. It is the same thing. So that Guru also will guide us. Om Gurur Brahma Gurur Vishnu Gurur Devo Maheshwaraha Guru Sakshat Param Brahma Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Now, after the chanting of the mantra of Ganesha and Guru, we are going to the proper Achamanam. Now, Swamijis will show you how to do Achamanam and they will be performing that with the mantra. You can also do that. Om Vishnu, Om Vishnu, Om Vishnu. 3 times they are telling the name of Vishnu. By remembering the name of Vishnu, your mind and body will be purified, both externally and internally. That is the meaning of the mantra they will be uttering now. Now with the Ganga water, they are now doing this Achmanam. You can also sip water. Narayanam Namaskritya Sarvakarmani Kare
Om Tat Vishnu Paramam Padam
Sada Pashyanti Suryaha Diviva Chakshuratatam
Om
Pavitra Pavitrova Sarvavasthanutapava Vyasvarit Pundarikaksham Bhakhyam Darashuchi
Clean Gopijanavallabhaya Swaha Sri Krishnaya Namaha.
Now we are going to the next step, that is the Pitanyasa. The mantra is given there, touching the chest with the Mruga Mudra. The mudra is also given there. Swamijis will show you. So the mantra is also there. Chant the mantra Om Rim Pitadevatabhyo Namaha. In your heart, you have to make the Pita, the place on which the Lord will be seated. So that Pita is worshipped now with the mantra. Swamijis will show you.
Om Rim Pitadevataabhyo Namaha. Om Rim Pidashaktibhyo Namaha.
So after the Pita Puja, now we have the Rishyadanyasa. It is the paying homage to the Rishis. It is called Rishyadanyasa. Now touching the following parts of the body with the Tattva Mudra. Tattva Mudra is also given there. So touching different parts of the body, limbs, that is head, mouth, chest, sacral plexus and feet. We will be repeating that mantra, and that mantra and the sacred words will be placed there in our limbs. Now Rishyadanyasa, Swamiji will show you how to do that.
ऋष्यादिन्यास शिरसि नादपुरुषाय नमः मुखे विराट छन्दसे नमः
Mouth,
हृदि
chest,
श्रीकृष्णाय देवताय नमः तुष्टे क्लीं
sacral
बीजाय
plexus,
नमः पादयोः
feet.
स्वाहा शक्तये नमः दुर्गा प्रणाम
Now we are doing Durga Pranam with the Durga Mata.
देवताय दुर्गाय नमः
Now we have finished this process. Now we are going to the next step, that is Karanyasaha, consecration of the hands. So all the fingers of our hands are touched with different other fingers, telling the mantra, the Klam, Klim, Klum, Klaim, Klaum, Klaha. This is the Bija mantra of Shri Krishna. We are consecrating all our fingers, the whole arms, with that mantra. The Swamijis will show you that.
ॐ क्लां मुष्टाभ्यां नमः ॐ क्लीं तर्जनीभ्यां स्वाहा ॐ क्लूं मध्यमाभ्यां वषट् ॐ क्लैं अनङ्गाभ्यां हुं ॐ क्लौं कनिष्ठाभ्यां कौषट् ॐ क्लः करदलपृष्ठाभ्यां अस्त्राय फट्.
Now we are going to the next step, that is Anganyasa. We are consecrating all the limbs, consecration of the limbs, different parts of our body. We will place those sacred Bija mantras, Klam, Klim, Klum, Klaim, Klaum, Klaha, these sacred Bija mantra of Shri Krishna on different parts of our limbs, so that we will become more and more purified and our limbs are consecrated. Swamijis will show you that process. Angam is different parts of the limbs of the body. Heart, head, now the shikha, tuft of hair, the shoulders, the three eyes. Now we are going to the next process, Vyapakanyasa. This is a consecration. The total consecration is called Vyapakanyasa. So now the Swamijis will show you by the Bija mantra. You should know what is the Mula mantra of Krishna. So Om Klim Gopi Janavalabhaya Swaha Om. This is the Mula mantra of Shri Krishna that will be repeated and the whole body is consecrated. Vyapakanyasa, total consecration. Swamijis will show you.
ॐ क्लीं गोपीजनवल्लभाय स्वाहा ॐ क्लीं गोपीजनवल्लभाय स्वाहा ॐ क्लीं गोपीजनवल्लभाय स्वाहा.
Now the next process, that is the Pita Puja. Now you have purified the place where the Lord Krishna is seated in your heart. The Pita has been made ready. Now you have to make ready the Pita, where now you will place Lord outside there in the image or the photo and then worship. So that Pita where the Lord will stay, will stand or sit, so that is now worshipped. Wherever you have kept the photo or the image of Lord Krishna, you can worship that place where Lord Krishna is standing or sitting with this mantra. This is Pita Puja, worship of the seat of the deity. Swamijis will show you now.
ॐ ह्रीं एदेवं पुष्पे पीठदेवताभ्यो नमः ॐ ह्रीं एदेवं पुष्पे पीठशक्तिभ्यो नमः.
Now we are doing the next step, that is Dhyanam, meditation. So to do the meditation, we have to place our hand in this mudra. So that's called the Kurma mudra, the tortoise mudra. The flower is to be taken in that mudra, then kept near the heart, and you have to do the meditation mantra. The Dhyana mantra also will be told by the Swamijis. You can see Swamiji will perform that.
ॐ क्लीं पूरेन्दि वरकान्तिबिन्दुवदनं वरहारं सुप्रियं श्रीवत्साङ्गमुदारकौस्तुभधरं पीताम्बरं सुन्दरं गोपीनारायणोत्पलाचितनं गोगोसंस्मारकं गोविन्दं करवीर्भावरं दिव्यां
दिव्याङ्गभूषं भजे. Now that flower in which the heart, from your heart, the Lord, you have meditated in the heart, and now you will bring it through that process into that flower. From the flower, you are placing Lord Krishna slowly on the image, and now you can see the Lord is manifested in that image or photo wherever you want to worship. Now you will make it more intense by doing Paramikarana Mudra. Please come here, please come here. Please stay, please stay. You turn towards me, you turn towards me to receive my worship. Please stay here and receive my puja, that is the prayer. Now sprinkling Ganga water on it 3 times. By this process, you have done the prana pratishtha, you have avahanadi mantra, avahana. Now this is the paramikarana mudra, and sprinkling of the water is shown here by the Swamijis. That's a paramikarana mudra to make the Lord to stay in that image, the place where you please. You will give him the worship. Now we are going to the next step, that is the 10 services done to the Lord, Dasha Upachara Puja. So this is the proper puja. Now I think everything is ready with the water, sandal paste and everything. It is there. Padyam is the water, then Arghya, you have to prepare that flower, Tulsi and everything. Durva grass, Akshata, then Achamanam, water for Achamanam, then Snaniya, that is the bathing. So if you have that all Pancha Amrita, 5 items, that also can be given after the bathing. Then it is the Gandha, the sandal paste, and Pushpa, the flowers, and Tulsi Patram. So now we will perform that Dasha Upachara worship. The Swamiji will show you. You can also do one by one. Now it is the Padya. You are giving water to wash the feet of the Lord. You're taking it in the spoon which you used to give the water. Then in that they are adding fragrance, little flower, akshata, to make it more meaningful. Now we are offering that to wash the feet of the Lord. Feel that you are washing the feet of the Lord. Now the next thing is you are giving the arghya. So take water, Ganga water, then Durva grass, then you are taking Tulsi Patram, apply sandal paste, then keep the rice akshata on it. With the water you offer that. That is the arghya. You are giving arghya and also water to wash the hands of Shri Krishna. Now you are giving water to rinse the mouth of Shri Krishna. So Achamaniyam. Ganga water is taken. You can also give that, thinking that you are giving water to rinse the mouth of Lord Krishna. Then you take a piece of cloth, piece of cloth, then wipe the mouth of Krishna softly. Then we are giving bathing water to Shri Krishna. Now if you have conch, you can fill that with water, Ganga water, and then do the process of bathing with ringing the bell. Now the mantra will be told, Purusha Sukta, and then all the first line of all the 4 Vedas will be chanted. You can also now offer water. Feel that you are bathing Shri Krishna with water with lot of devotion. These are all the first line of all the 4 Vedas, Rig Veda, Yajur Veda, Atharvana Veda, Sama Veda. Now they will be giving the bathing with the Pancha Amrita Snaniyam. So the first will be the milk. They will give the bathing to Krishna with milk. You can also, if you have milk, you can give the bath to Krishna with that milk.
Panchamrita Snaniyam.
Now we are offering Kshira Snaniyam, that is called Kshira Snaniyam. So you are giving milk to the Lord with that Kshira. So the milk is given. You can also bathe the Lord with the milk if you have, otherwise water can be done. Water can be used. The next thing in the Panchamrita Snana is you are giving the bath of curds. Before that you will be giving fresh water. After the milk, then fresh water. Now you are giving the curds, Dadisnaniyam. Great devotion. The Narayana Gayatri is repeated with great devotion. You are given the bath to Lord Krishna with the curds. Now you will give pure water, fresh water, bath again. Then you will be giving the bath of ghee, clarified butter. Ghritam, in Sanskrit it's called Ghritam. Ajya also is another name for ghee, Ajya Snaniya. So we are giving the bath of ghee or clarified butter, Ajya Snaniya. You also, if you have ghee, you can offer to the Lord as bath now. Otherwise, you can replace it with water and think that you are giving the bath of ghee mentally. After that again, fresh water bath is given. Now, honey bath is given with honey to Lord Krishna. You can also, if you have honey, you can give the bath with honey with great devotion to the Lord. If you don't have honey, you can replace it with water. Mentally think that you are giving the bath of honey to the Lord. Devotion is very important. So after the bath of honey to Lord Krishna, now we are giving again fresh water bath to clear up all those things from the body of Shri Krishna. You are giving fresh water bath. After that, you will wipe the whole person or body of Krishna with a towel softly. Again, the bath is given with water. Oh, now, sorry, we had given up one more item, that the sugar. Sorry that I left out sugar. It is now the bath of sugar. If you don't have sugar, you can give bath with water and mentally think that you have poured sugar there. Now fresh water bath. The whole process is repeated again with the Purusha Suktam and also the first line of the Vedas will be chanted. The bell is continuously chanted. Now you can wipe the water and other things softly on the body of Krishna. You can feel that you are wiping with the towel. With great devotion, softly you are wiping the whole body of Shri Krishna. You can see the Maharaj is also showing that, doing that. Now the next process is, after that we are giving anointing the whole body of Sri Krishna with sandal paste. You can also feel mentally applying sandal paste to the whole person of Sri Krishna softly. You are applying that. You can feel. Then after the gandha is anointed, now you are offering flowers at the feet of the Lord. Different varieties of flowers you have, you can take them, apply sandal paste to them. Indication of application of this sandal paste is indicating you are giving with devotion. With great devotion you are offering flowers, different varieties of flower at the feet of the Lord. Now after the flower we are giving tulsi patram. Take the basil leaf, tulsi patram, apply sandalwood paste indicating your devotion. Then there is a mantra, special mantra for that. Namaste Bhagurupaya Vishnave Paramatmane Swaha. Idaya Swaha. We offered the Tulsi Patram at the feet with devotion. Then the next process is you are now lighting agarbatti or dhupa incense sticks. You can light it slowly, let it burn a little, and then afterwards you can put it off. So now the Swamiji is showing you. Then wave it to Lord Krishna with the ringing of the bell and uttering the mantra. You can do that now. Dhupaha.
Om Klim Gopijanavallabhaya Swaha Esha Dhupaha Krishnaya Namaha Om Narayana Vimahe Vasudevaya Dhimahi Tanno Vishnu Prachodayat. Om.
Now after giving agarbatti or incense stick, now you can get ready the deepaha, that is the lamps. You can light the lamps, deepaha, for arati, then slowly let it burn for some time, then slowly wave it so that it will not get off. Show it to the face, to the chest, to the whole feet and body of Sri Krishna. Then after that you can give that arati to the other people there as prasadam to whoever is near the puja place. The next process after arati is naivedyam, offering of fruits, sweets or whatever you have ready there. You can offer it with great devotion. Tulasi patram is added on the fruits or on the sweets or whatever offering you have made ready to purify that objects. If you don't have tulasi patram, you can add flowers, or else you can feel that mentally that it is purified by taking the name of the Lord. Now the process of naivedyam is started. You can also participate in that, offer that naivedyam to the Lord, mentally feel that you are feeding Lord Krishna. Slowly you can mentally take one by one items as many times and feed Lord Krishna with that sweets or fruits, payasam, whatever you have, liquids, fruit juice, milk, whatever you have, you can feed the Lord. To your heart content, you can feed the Lord. Now the chakra mudra is being shown. Then Agni Bija mantra, Vayu Bija mantra, now Varuna Bija mantra, Dhenu mudra is being shown to make it nectarine. Now the Matsya mudra is shown to protect that. Sharkaradi vinirmitam
Om Klim Gopijanavallabhaya Swaha Idam Sopakarana Naivedyam Sri Krishnaya Nivedayami.
It is now offered to all the prana, the energies of Lord Krishna, by telling Om Pranaya Swaha, Panaya Swaha, Vyanaya Swaha, Udanaya Swaha, Samanaya Swaha.
Pranaya Swaha, Apanaya Swaha, Vyanaya Swaha, एतच्चलम् अमृतावतीमसि स्वाहा।
Now
Om Klim
you are giving,
Govindavallabhaya Swaha.
offering the water to drink,
Shri Krishnaya
or whatever fruit
Nivedayami.
juice, whatever you kept, you are offering there.
Om Klim Govindavallabhaya Swaha. Idam
You are giving water Punarachmaniyam to rinse the mouth or wash the mouth after eating the food. The mouth is to be clean.
Om Klim Govindavallabhaya Swaha. Idam Tambuladam Shri Krishnaya Nivedayami.
Now tambulam is given. After the tambula, the pan, again the water is given to rinse the mouth. Now the whole process of the Shopachar Puja is over. Now I am going to perform the worship of the different ornaments on the body of Krishna. You can take one flower. I will repeat the mantras. You can just offer the flower to the Lord for all the ornaments on his body. Om Ete Gandha Pushpe Venave Namaha to the flute of Krishna. Om Ete Gandha Pushpe Vanamalayai Namaha, the beautiful garland on the person of Shri Krishna. Om Ete Gandha Pushpe Kaustubhayai Namaha, the jewel of Shri Krishna. Om Ete Gandha Pushpe Shri Vatsaya Namaha, to the Shri Vatsa on the body of Krishna. Now we are offering next the Pushpanjali. Now take as many flowers as possible in both your hands, apply sandal paste to it, and now by telling the mantra we will offer it to the Lord. This together with both the hands it is called Pushpa Anjalihi. Om Gopi Janavallabhaya Swaha Esha Sachandana Pushpa Tulasi Patranjalihi Shri Krishna Yavaushat. Tulasi and flowers both are offered with sandal paste, indicating with great devotion. Now we are worshipping all the people who are accompanying Lord Krishna wherever he goes, the protecting deities, the just like the bodyguards or the servants who will be always ready, the great devatas, the great goddesses, gods will be ready to do serve the Lord. So all of them we are worshipping now. Avarana Devata, Shadanga Devata and other things. Now offer flowers to all of them. Om Ete Gandha Pushpe Shri Krishna Shadanga Devata Bhyo Namaha. Shadanga Devata we gave the flower. Now we are giving to Avarana Devata. Om Ete Gandha Pushpe Shri Krishna Avarana Devata Bhyo Namaha. Now we are offering flowers to the father of Shri Krishna. Om Ete Gandha Pushpe Vasudeva Yai Namaha. Now we are giving it to mother. Om Ete Gandha Pushpe Daivakyai Namaha, the biological mother and biological father. Now we are giving to the father and mother who brought up Sri Krishna in Vrindavan. Om Ete Gandha Pushpe Nandaya Namaha. Om Ete Gandha Pushpe Yashodayai Namaha. Now we are giving to the brother and sister of Sri Krishna. Om Ete Gandha Pushpe Balabhadraya Namaha. Om Ete Gandha Pushpe Gopebhyo Namaha. Now we are offering flower to all the Gopa, Gopis, all the male Vrajavasis and the female Vrajavasis. Om Ete Gandha Pushpe Gopibhyo Namaha. Om Ete Gandha Pushpe Gopebhyo Namaha. Now we are doing the worship of Mother Radha. Now take flowers and sandal paste and offer to Mother Radha. Om Ete Gandha Pushpe Shri Radhika Yai Namaha. Now we are coming to the end of the puja, that is the final Pushpanjali. Take as much as flower, all the leftover flowers, everything, apply sandal paste, tulsi patra, everything, keep both in your hands and offer to Lord Krishna and the other deities with him. Om Klim Gopi Janavallabhaya Swaha Esha Sachandana Pushpa Tulasi Patranjalihi Sangaya Savarnaya Sayudhaya Saparivaraya Savahanaya Sashaktikaya Shri Krishna Yavaushat. Now finally we will do the japa 21 times. You all know the Mula Mantra, but even in spite of that I am going to repeat that Mula Mantra and I will be performing 21 times. Japa you can do 108 times. With great devotion, we will repeat the name of the Lord, the Mula Mantra of Lord Krishna. Om Klim Gopi Janavallabhaya Swaha Om Om Klim Gopi Janavallabhaya Swaha Om Om Klim Gopi Janavalabhaya Swaha. 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 Om. We have done the japa of the Mula Mantra of Lord Krishna with great devotion 21 times. You can continue 108 times. Now I am telling the mantra to offer all the act of the karma of worship, the phala, the fruit of worship, again back to Lord Krishna, so that he will take all the phala. He will give us only good things. He will take away all the phalas and give us liberation. But before that, we will pray to Lord Krishna to protect all the human beings and everybody, animals, everything, every living being on this earth from the pandemic, the coronavirus. All should be protected. Your father, mother, near and dear ones, everybody are to be protected. Pray for their welfare. And anybody suffering from the disease should be cured of the disease. All the pain, all the troubles, torturing and troubling, all the people should go away. So pray in that manner and offer everything to the Lord. Now do the final pranams after the Japa Samarpana. I'm going to repeat the mantra of the Japa Samarpana. After that, another mantra will be repeated. The final mantra, you can do Sashtang Pranam to Lord Krishna, praying like that. Om Guhyat Guhya Goptatvam Gruhanasmat Kritam Japam Siddhir Bhavatu Me Deva Tvat Prasadan Maheshwara. Now the final prayer. Om Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kamsa Chanura Mardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum.
Savarya पीताम्बर धारी रे सावरिया पीताम्बर धारी रे सावरिया रे सावरिया रे सावरिया रे सावरिया सावरिया पीताम्बर धारी रे सावरिया पीताम्बर धारी रे सावरिया 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 सावरिया रे सावरिया।
Krishna 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 Yannona Krishna 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 Yannona Krishna Krishna Yannona Krishna Krishna Yannona Krishna ಎನ್ನಲು ನಾಚಿಕೆಯಾದರೆ ಸಂತರೊಡನೆ ಸೇರೋಣ ಕೃಷ್ಣ ಎನ್ನಲು ನಾಚಿಕೆಯಾದರೆ ಸಂತರೊಡನೆ ಸೇರೋಣ ಕೃಷ್ಣ ಕೃಷ್ಣ ಎನ್ನೋಣ ಸಂತರೊಡನೆ ಸೇರೋಣ ಕೃಷ್ಣ ಕೃಷ್ಣ ಎನ್ನೋಣ ಸಂತರೊಡನೆ ಸೇರೋಣ ರಾಮ 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 ಭಜನೆ ಮಾಡೋಣ ರಾಮ 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 ಭಜನೆ ಮಾಡೋಣ ರಾಮ ಭಜನೆ ಮಾಡೋಣ ರಾಮ ಭಜನೆ ಮಾಡೋಣ ಭಜನೆಯ ಮಾಡಲು ಬಾರದಿದ್ದರೆ ಭಜನೆಯ ಮಾಡಲು ಬಾರದಿದ್ದರೆ ಭಕ್ತರೊಡನೆ ಸೇರೋಣ ಭಕ್ತರೊಡನೆ ಸೇರೋಣ ರಾಮ ರಾಮ ಎನ್ನೋಣ ಭಕ್ತರೊಡನೆ ಸೇರೋಣ ರಾಮ ರಾಮ ಎನ್ನೋಣ ಭಕ್ತರೊಡನೆ ಸೇರೋಣ ವಿಠ್ಠಲ 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 ಎನ್ನೋಣ ವಿಠ್ಠಲ 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 ಎನ್ನೋಣ ವಿಠ್ಠಲ ವಿಠ್ಠಲ ಎನ್ನೋಣ ವಿಠ್ಠಲ ವಿಠ್ಠಲ ಎನ್ನೋಣ ಜಯ ಜಯ ವಿಠ್ಠಲ ಎನ್ನೋಣ ಜಯ ಜಯ ವಿಠ್ಠಲ ಎನ್ನೋಣ ಜಯ ಹರಿ ವಿಠ್ಠಲ ಎನ್ನೋಣ ಜಯ ಹರಿ ವಿಠ್ಠಲ ಎನ್ನೋಣ ವಿಠ್ಠಲ ಎನ್ನಲು ಆಗದಿದ್ದರೆ ವಿಠ್ಠಲ ಎನ್ನಲು ಆಗದಿದ್ದರೆ ಕೈಯ ತಟ್ಟಿ ಕುಣಿಯೋಣ ಕೈಯ ತಟ್ಟಿ ಕುಣಿಯೋಣ ವಿಠ್ಠಲ ವಿಠ್ಠಲ ಎನ್ನೋಣ ಕೈಯ ತಟ್ಟಿ ಕುಣಿಯೋಣ ವಿಠ್ಠಲ ವಿಠ್ಠಲ ಎನ್ನೋಣ ಕೈಯ ತಟ್ಟಿ ಕುಣಿಯೋಣ ಕೃಷ್ಣ 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 ಎನ್ನೋಣ ಕೃಷ್ಣ 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 ಎನ್ನೋಣ ಕೃಷ್ಣ ಕೃಷ್ಣ ಎನ್ನೋಣ ಕೃಷ್ಣ ಕೃಷ್ಣ ಎನ್ನೋಣ ಕೃಷ್ಣ ಎನ್ನಲು ನಾಚಿಕೆಯಾದರೆ ಸಂತರೊಡನೆ ಸೇರೋಣ ಕೃಷ್ಣ ಎನ್ನಲು ನಾಚಿಕೆಯಾದರೆ ಸಂತರೊಡನೆ ಸೇರೋಣ ಕೃಷ್ಣ ಕೃಷ್ಣ ಎನ್ನೋಣ ಸಂತರೊಡನೆ ಸೇರೋಣ ಕೃಷ್ಣ ಕೃಷ್ಣ ಎನ್ನೋಣ ಸಂತರೊಡನೆ ಸೇರೋಣ ರಾಮ 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 ಭಜನೆ ಮಾಡೋಣ ರಾಮ 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 ಭಜನೆ ಮಾಡೋಣ ರಾಮ ಭಜನೆ ಮಾಡೋಣ ರಾಮ ಭಜನೆ ಮಾಡೋಣ ಭಜನೆಯ ಮಾಡಲು ಬಾರದಿದ್ದರೆ ಭಕ್ತರೊಡನೆ ಸೇರೋಣ ಭಜನೆಯ ಮಾಡಲು ಬಾರದಿದ್ದರೆ ಭಕ್ತರೊಡನೆ ಸೇರೋಣ ರಾಮ ರಾಮ ಎನ್ನೋಣ ಭಕ್ತರೊಡನೆ ಸೇರೋಣ ರಾಮ ರಾಮ ಎನ್ನೋಣ ಭಕ್ತರೊಡನೆ ಸೇರೋಣ ವಿಠ್ಠಲ 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 ಎನ್ನೋಣ ವಿಠ್ಠಲ 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 ಎನ್ನೋಣ ಜಯ ಜಯ ವಿಠ್ಠಲ ಎನ್ನೋಣ ಜಯ ಜಯ ವಿಠ್ಠಲ ಎನ್ನೋಣ ಜಯ ಹರಿ ವಿಠ್ಠಲ ಎನ್ನೋಣ ಜಯ ಹರಿ ವಿಠ್ಠಲ ಎನ್ನೋಣ ವಿಠ್ಠಲ ಎನ್ನಲು ಆಗದಿದ್ದರೆ ಕೈಯ ತಟ್ಟಿ ಕುಣಿಯೋಣ ವಿಠ್ಠಲ ಎನ್ನಲು ಆಗದಿದ್ದರೆ ಕೈಯ ತಟ್ಟಿ ಕುಣಿಯೋಣ ವಿಠ್ಠಲ ವಿಠ್ಠಲ ಎನ್ನೋಣ ಕೈಯ ತಟ್ಟಿ ಕುಣಿಯೋಣ ವಿಠ್ಠಲ ವಿಠ್ಠಲ ಎನ್ನೋಣ ಕೈಯ ತಟ್ಟಿ ಕುಣಿಯೋಣ ವಿಠ್ಠಲ 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 ಎನ್ನೋಣ ವಿಠ್ಠಲ 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 ಎನ್ನೋಣ ವಿಠ್ಠಲ ವಿಠ್ಠಲ ಎನ್ನೋಣ ವಿಠ್ಠಲ ವಿಠ್ಠಲ ಎನ್ನೋಣ ಜಯ ಜಯ ವಿಠ್ಠಲ ಎನ್ನೋಣ ಜಯ ಜಯ ವಿಠ್ಠಲ ಎನ್ನೋಣ ಜಯ ಹರಿ ವಿಠ್ಠಲ ಎನ್ನೋಣ ಜಯ ಹರಿ ವಿಠ್ಠಲ ಎನ್ನೋಣ ವಿಠ್ಠಲ ಎನ್ನಲು ಆಗದಿದ್ದರೆ ಕೈಯ ತಟ್ಟಿ ಕುಣಿಯೋಣ ವಿಠ್ಠಲ ಎನ್ನಲು ಆಗದಿದ್ದರೆ ಕೈಯ ತಟ್ಟಿ ಕುಣಿಯೋಣ ವಿಠ್ಠಲ ವಿಠ್ಠಲ ಎನ್ನೋಣ ಕೈಯ ತಟ್ಟಿ ಕುಣಿಯೋಣ ವಿಠ್ಠಲ ವಿಠ್ಠಲ ಎನ್ನೋಣ ಕೈಯ ತಟ್ಟಿ ಕುಣಿಯೋಣ ಕೃಷ್ಣ ಕೃಷ್ಣ ಎನ್ನೋಣ ಸಂತರೊಡನೆ ಸೇರೋಣ ಕೃಷ್ಣ ಕೃಷ್ಣ ಎನ್ನೋಣ ಸಂತರೊಡನೆ ಸೇರೋಣ ರಾಮ ರಾಮ ಎನ್ನೋಣ ಭಕ್ತರೊಡನೆ ಸೇರೋಣ ರಾಮ ರಾಮ ಎನ್ನೋಣ ಭಕ್ತರೊಡನೆ ಸೇರೋಣ ವಿಠ್ಠಲ ವಿಠ್ಠಲ ಎನ್ನೋಣ ಕೈಯ ತಟ್ಟಿ ಕುಣಿಯೋಣ 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 ವಿಠ್ಠಲ ವಿಠ್ಠಲ ಜೈ ಜೈ ವಿಠ್ಠಲ 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 ಜೈ ಜೈ ವಿಠ್ಠಲ.
ओम स्थापकाय च धर्मस्य सर्वधर्मस्वरूपिणे अवतार वरिष्ठाय रामकृष्णाय ते नमः। वसुदेवसुतं देवं कंसचाणूरमर्दनं देवकी परमानन्दं कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुम्। My humble pranams to Swami Swatma Ramanandaji Maharaj for inviting me to speak to you on this auspicious occasion, Krishna Janmashtami. And I was asking myself what topic I should be speaking on today. And one thing that's important about Krishna is that he had many faces, you can say, many different personalities. And one of the well-known personalities of Krishna is in his role in Vrindavan, sporting with the gopis. And that side of his personality is beautifully explained in the Bhagavatam, one of the great Hindu scriptures. But I want to focus today on a different side of Bhagavan Krishna's great many-sided divine personality. And that is the side of his personality depicted in the Bhagavad-gita, the great scripture which is part of the Mahabharata, where Krishna is depicted as a warrior and as a divine charioteer, guiding his friend Arjuna. And Arjuna, of course, is not just one person, but he represents all of humanity, which means that the teachings of Bhagavan Krishna and the Bhagavad-gita apply to all of us. They're meant to guide each one of us on the spiritual path to the highest spiritual goal. So I'm going to focus today a little bit on Bhagavan Krishna's teachings in the Bhagavad-gita. How should we understand these teachings? And how can we apply these teachings to our daily life and practice? And I also want to relate Bhagavan Krishna's teachings in the Bhagavad-gita to the life and teachings of Sri Ramakrishna. And I'm going to explain soon why I do so. But let me begin by mentioning something that Sri Ramakrishna used to say about Bhagavad-gita. Sri Ramakrishna used to say, what is the significance of the Gita? It is what you find by repeating the word 10 times. It is then reversed into tagi, which means a person who has renounced everything for God. And the lesson of the Gita is, oh man, renounce everything and seek God alone. Sri Ramakrishna would often repeat this teaching, that the Gita is a wonderful scripture. He would even say that every sannyasi should carry a pocket-sized version of the Gita with him at all times. He loved the scripture so much. And the essence, he distilled the essence of the Gita into this one word. If you reverse the word Gita, it becomes tyagi, which means renounce. Renounce all of these worldly pleasures, worldly attachments for the sake of seeking God. This is the fundamental message of Bhagavan Krishna in the Bhagavad-gita. But I want to go into a little bit more depth and a little bit more detail into the teachings of the Bhagavad-gita. Now, when we try to study the Bhagavad-gita in greater depth, what we find is that things become a little bit complicated because there are many different interpretations of the Bhagavad-gita, beginning with Sri Shankaracharya. After Shankaracharya, many other commentaries came, like Ramanuja's commentary from the standpoint of Vishtadvaita Vedanta, Madhva's commentary from the standpoint of Dvaita Vedanta, and so many other commentaries have come up. And then the question is, which commentary should we accept, if any of them, right? Now, that's why it's important to go back to what Swami Vivekananda used to say. He said that we should reinterpret the Vedantic scriptures on an independent and better basis than by blindly following the commentators. This is a direct quotation. Our duty is to reinterpret the Vedantic scriptures like the Upanishads, the Bhagavad-gita, Brahma Sutra, on an independent and better basis than by blindly following the commentators. And in another place, Swami Vivekananda said the following. He said, we must interpret the Vedas in the light of the experience of Sri Ramakrishna. Shankaracharya and all other commentators made the tremendous mistake to think that the whole of the Vedas say only one thing. Therefore, they were guilty of torturing those of the apparently conflicting Vedic texts which go against their own doctrines into the meaning of their particular schools. As in the olden times, it was the Lord alone, the deliverer of the Gita. So, of course, Swamiji here means Bhagavan Krishna, who partially harmonized these apparently conflicting statements. So, with a view to completely settling this dispute, immensely magnified in the process of time, he himself, the Lord himself, has come as Sri Ramakrishna. Therefore, no one can truly understand the Vedas and Vedanta unless one studies them in the light of the utterance of Sri Ramakrishna. This is a very profound statement made by Swami Vivekananda about how we should try to interpret the great scriptures like the Bhagavad-gita. Swami Vivekananda says we should not rely on any of the traditional commentators. We should not rely on Shankara's commentary or Ramanuja's commentary or Madhva's commentary or any of the other commentators. We can learn from them, but we should not depend on them exclusively. Instead, we should reinterpret the Bhagavad-gita. We should study the Bhagavad-gita in the light of the life and teachings of Sri Ramakrishna. Why does he say this? The reason is very interesting. Because Sri Ramakrishna himself was an avatara. And Bhagavan Krishna was also an avatara. What Swami Vivekananda is saying is, the Lord incarnated in the form of Bhagavan Krishna in order to give us these beautiful teachings, these wonderful harmonizing teachings. But he did not fully harmonize all the different conflicts that were happening and that have been magnified now. Now we're in 2022. And so we have to reinterpret the Bhagavad-gita and the teachings of Bhagavan Krishna in the light of Sri Ramakrishna, who is the Samanvaya avatara of our age. He is the avatar of harmony. Only Sri Ramakrishna can explain how we can understand the Bhagavad-gita's harmonizing spirit in the most accurate manner and most productive manner. So let us begin now briefly to study and to try to understand the teachings of Bhagavan Krishna in the Bhagavad-gita from the standpoint of Sri Ramakrishna. Now, let's look first at, if you study the 700 slokas of the Bhagavad-gita, what you'll find is that there are a few keynotes, there are a few key themes that are touched upon repeatedly in the Bhagavad-gita. One of them you'll find, maybe the single most central keynote in the Bhagavad-gita, is Bhagavan Krishna's emphasis on karma yoga, the yoga of selfless action. Bhagavan Krishna tells Arjuna again and again, you don't need to renounce the world, you don't need to renounce your family. What you need to do, offering it to God and offering the fruits of that work to God. This is one of the keynotes of the Bhagavad-gita. One of the most famous teachings in chapter 2 of the Gita is karmanyevadikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana, which means Bhagavan Krishna is saying, you have a right to action, to work, to your duty. But you do not have a right to enjoying the fruits of that action. The fruits you have to leave up to God. This is one of the main teachings of the Bhagavad-gita. In chapter 3, Bhagavan Krishna says something very similar. He says, Mai sarvani karmani sanyasyadhyatma chetasa nirashi nirmamo bhutva yudhyasva vigatajvaraha. Bhagavan Krishna says, give up all of your actions to me and keep your mind on the divine soul, on the divine reality. And if you do that, you'll be completely free from any kind of selfish expectations or hopes. You'll be completely free from me and mine, from any kind of egoism. And you will be able to fight in this world of action, fight in a metaphorical sense. You will be able to carry on in this world without the fever of ego. Vigata jvaraha means without fever, but in a metaphorical sense, it means without the fever of being a slave to your ego and to the lower tendencies. So this is the secret of karma yoga as taught by Bhagavan Krishna in the Bhagavad-gita. You continue to do all of your duties. Do all of your duties, but in an unselfish spirit. And by doing so, you will make spiritual progress and you will ultimately attain the highest goal of life, which is God realization. Now, the next question that comes up, of course, is what kind of action should we perform? There's so many things that we could do. We could do puja, we can fight in a war, we can sell vegetables, we can meditate. There's so many things we can do. What should we do? This is a big question. It's a very practical question. And there's no universal answer. So I want to go into this in some more detail, but let me begin by quoting one shloka from chapter 9 of the Bhagavad-gita. This is another very famous shloka. Bhagavan Krishna says, Yat karoshi, yat ashnasi, yat juhoti, dadasi yat. Yat tapassasi kaunteya tat kurushva madarpanam. Which means whatever you do, whatever you eat, whatever you sacrifice, whatever you give to others, whatever austerities you perform, whatever you do it for my sake. So the idea here is what you're doing is less important than how you are doing it, the spirit in which you're doing it, the attitude with which you're doing it. That's the first very, very important teaching of Bhagavan Krishna. Don't think that there are higher and lower duties. Not like that. You should never think that way. Otherwise, you may develop an inferiority complex. Oh, that person is doing a very great duty. I'm doing a very low duty. There's no higher and lower. Whatever duty comes to you in the course of your life, you should do that in an unattached way and do it for the sake of God. Do it as a service to God. Do it as a worship of God, rather than as a way of aggrandizing your own ego and as a way of saying, taking credit for the work and saying, I'm doing something very great. Not like that. Do everything you do for God, whatever the duty that comes to you, whether it's raising children or going to your office, whatever it is. Now, another doubt that comes up many times, I've heard this from a number of people, even monks in our order have this. Sometimes some people get this idea that karma yoga is a lower practice. It's an inferior practice. And And what happens is when we do karma yoga, then we start to develop this kind of inferiority complex that we're doing it because we're not a high enough adhikari. And eventually we have to give up the karma yoga and do some higher spiritual practice. This is a very common misconception, I think. And Bhagavan Krishna was very aware of this. Even during Bhagavan Krishna's time, people had this attitude that karma yoga is somehow a lower practice. And Bhagavan Krishna says this is not true. You should remove all such ideas from your head. Chapter 5, shlokas 4 and 5. This is what Bhagavan Krishna says. Sankhya yogo pratak balaha pravadanti na panditaha ekamapi asita samyak ubhayor vindate phalam. What Bhagavan Krishna is saying is that only fools say that Sankhya yoga and yoga, karma yoga. So Sankhya yoga means jnana yoga, and yoga here means karma yoga. Fools alone say that jnana yoga and karma yoga are different. A person well established in even one of these yogas attains the common goal of both. What is Bhagavan Krishna saying here? He's saying that the goal of all yogas is God realization, moksha, liberation from rebirth, and attainment of the highest spiritual goal of life. And it is not that karma yoga is an intermediate step that will ultimately lead to eligibility for practicing jnana yoga, and only through jnana yoga we can attain moksha. Not like that. Only fools think in that way. In fact, the truth is that whichever path we take, whether it's karma yoga or jnana yoga, we will reach the same goal. So there's no higher and lower. It's not that karma yoga is lower than jnana yoga, nothing like that. So this is a very important teaching of Bhagavan Krishna's. In fact, this teaching is so important, and this is one of the favorite slokas of Swami Vivekananda, the great disciple of Sri Ramakrishna. And keeping in mind this sloka, Swami Vivekananda used to say, I'm quoting this directly from his book, Karma Yoga. He said, each one of our yogas is fitted to make man perfect, even without the help of the others, because they have all the same goal in view. The yogas of work, karma yoga, of wisdom, jnana yoga, and of devotion, bhakti yoga, are all capable of serving as direct and independent means for the attainment of moksha. Then Swamiji directly quotes this shloka from the Bhagavad-gita. He says, fools alone say that work and philosophy are different, not the learned. Then Swamiji says, the learned know, the learned meaning the wise people know that though apparently different from each other, they at last lead to the same goal of human perfection. So Swamiji is giving us a hint here as to how we should reinterpret the Bhagavad-gita in light of Sri Ramakrishna. Because Shankaracharya and other acharyas, they sometimes went into this game, they played this game of saying that some yogas are higher than other yogas. And so Shankara, for instance, would interpret these slokas to say that karma yoga is good, but it's a lower practice. It is for the purpose of chitta shuddhi, for the purpose of purifying the mind. After purifying our minds, we become eligible to practice the higher spiritual practice of jnana yoga. After practicing jnana yoga, we can attain liberation, God realization. Swamiji says this is not the correct interpretation of this shloka from the Bhagavad-gita in chapter 5. He says, if you interpret this shloka very naturally and in the light of Sri Ramakrishna, who practiced all of these different yogas, Sri Ramakrishna practiced karma yoga, he practiced jnana yoga, he practiced bhakti yoga, he practiced raja yoga, and what he found is that all of these yogas are equally fitted to take us to the highest goal, and there's no higher and lower. Each is a direct and independent path to the same goal of liberation. This is a better interpretation, a more accurate interpretation of Bhagavan Krishna's teaching in the Bhagavad-gita. This is one example of how Swamiji himself wanted us to study the Bhagavad-gita. That's why I'm emphasizing it here. This gives us a very useful hint as to how to interpret other slokas in the Bhagavad-gita as well. So let's look at some other examples from the Bhagavad-gita. Chapter 3, the 20th shloka, Bhagavan Krishna says, Karmana eva hi samsiddhim astitaha janakadayaha loka sangraham evapi sampashyan kattumarhasi. People like Janaka, the great king Janaka, attain to perfection, the highest goal of life, through work alone, you also ought to work for the good of the world, having their example in view. So King Janaka set this great example to all of us. He was a king. He had so many responsibilities. He had a family. He was not a monk. But through karma yoga alone, he attained the highest goal of spiritual perfection. This is what the shloka seems to say. Again, if we rely on the traditional commentators, we may be misled. This is something Swamiji emphasized again and again. Why? Why might they mislead us? Because both Shankara and Ramanuja claim that karma yoga is only an indirect path to moksha. It can help us to purify our minds, but it can only take us part of the way. Then we have to practice a higher yoga. That higher yoga is jnana yoga. For Ramanuja, that higher yoga is bhakti yoga. That's a separate issue. But in both cases, if we rely on Shankara or Ramanuja, we will be led to interpret the shloka in a bit of a different way. We will say that this shloka, Bhagavan Krishna, means that Janaka did not attain siddhi, perfection, directly through karma yoga, only indirectly. Ultimately, he had to practice some higher spiritual practice. Now, Swamiji, again, if we take Swamiji's ideas, if we take Thakur's teachings, the teachings of Sri Ramakrishna, then we won't be misled. We can take this shloka very naturally, and we can interpret the shloka as saying that Bhagavan Krishna is plainly saying that people like Janaka, who are busy with all sorts of worldly responsibilities, they attain the highest goal of God realization through karma yoga alone, by doing all of their duties in a spirit of worship and in a spirit of non-attachment. This is the essence of this shloka. Now, another doubt often comes to our minds. Of course, Bhagavan Krishna is saying that we can do any work. And the important thing is not what we do, but how we do it, the attitude with which you do the work. At the same time, there's a very practical question which faces most of us, almost all of us, in this day and age. The question is, there's so many kinds of occupations in this world. We can be a lawyer, we can be a doctor, we can be a farmer, we can be a waiter or a waitress in a restaurant. There's so many things we can do, right? Some people can become monks also. So what is our ideal work? What should be our main work, our main duty, our main job in life, you know? What is our vocation? What is our calling? This is something that many people struggle with. This happens especially in the late teens, early 20s, when people go to college and they start asking themselves, well, you know, what is it that I'm meant to do in this life? What is the work that is best suited to my nature? And Bhagavad-gita, one of the reasons Bhagavan Krishna's teachings in the Bhagavad-gita are so wonderful and so practical is that he directly answers this question. He gives us very useful tips on how to answer this question. How do we determine what work is best suited to our nature? What Bhagavan Krishna says in many places in the Bhagavad-gita is that we should do the work that best accords with our inherent nature. What he calls in Sanskrit our swabhava. In Bangla, it's shobhab. If we do the work that accords with our inherent nature, our law of being, then we'll be able to make the most spiritual progress on the one hand. So atmano mokshatam, as Swamiji said. But we will also be able to benefit society maximally. Jagadhitayacha. I've just mentioned the slogan, the motto of the Ramakrishna order, which Swamiji himself coined. Atmano mokshatam jagadhitayacha. The beauty of the teaching of the Bhagavad-gita is that if we do the duty, the work that best fits with our unique nature, then we will attain we will make the most spiritual progress, atmano mokshatam, and we will be able to maximally benefit society, jagadhitayacha. Where does Bhagavan Krishna say this? He says it in many places, but I'm just going to mention a few shlokas. Chapter 18, shloka 57. Bhagavan Krishna says, Shreyan swadharmo vigunaha paradharmat swanushtithat swabhava niyatam karma kurvan napnoti kilbisham. It is better to do the duty that best accords with your own inherent nature, rather than, even if that swadharma has some defects. It is much better to do that than to follow another person's dharma, another person's duty. This is Bhagavan Krishna's main teaching. Then he says in the second line of the shloka, Swabhava niyatam karma kurvan napnoti kilbisham. By doing the work that best accords with your swabhava niyatam karma, you will not incur any sin. And in fact, you will make spiritual progress and ultimately attain God realization. This is one of the great teachings of the Bhagavad-gita. You should do the work that is in accordance with your swadharma, your own law of being. Then the next question is, how do we determine our swadharma? This is the next natural question to come up. Then Bhagavan Krishna says, your swadharma, you can determine your swadharma by identifying, by carefully examining two things, your gunas and your karma, guna karma. Our swadharma is based on our guna and karma. Our gunas means our inherent qualities. And our karma means our behavior, our thoughts, our actions. What kind of actions do we naturally engage in? What kind of thoughts do we naturally think? And what are our inherent qualities? Okay? On the basis of our gunas and karmas, Bhagavan Krishna has divided human beings into four main categories. These categories are Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, and Shudras. And here, many people make a serious mistake. Many people, when they study the Bhagavad-gita, they think that these are the hereditary castes, which are common in India now. But this would be a very serious mistake. Bhagavan Krishna never teaches a hereditary caste system. He teaches that these different types of people, the Brahmanas, the Kshatriyas, the Vaishyas, Shudras, he divides these people based not on heredity, not that I was born into a Brahmin family or a Shudra family or a Vaishya family, not like that. We cannot be born into any of these categories. We belong to one of these categories based on our own guna and karma. Guna and karma are terms that come up again and again in the Bhagavad-gita. Whether we are a Brahmana or a Kshatriya or a Vaishya or a Shudra depends not on our hereditary, what family we belong to, but on our own inherent qualities, number one, and on how we behave and how we act in this world. So please don't get confused by this. Don't think that Bhagavan Krishna is teaching the hereditary caste system. That is not at all his teaching. We should understand our own gunas and our own karma. We should try to deeply analyze ourselves and figure out what are our main qualities and our main tendencies on the one hand, and our main actions on the other hand, our mode of behavior. And what each of us will find is that we fall very broadly into one of four categories. There's some people who are naturally highly intellectual. They have a more sattvic temperament. They like studies. They tend to be fairly quiet, sometimes introverted. They're naturally inclined toward God and toward unselfishness. And Bhagavan Krishna explains the qualities of a Brahmana in Shloka 41 of chapter 18. He says, Shloka 42, Shamo damas tapas shaucham shantir arjavam evacha jnanam vijnanamastikyam brahma karma swabhavajam. The work that is most appropriate for those who have the swabhava of a Brahmana are the following. Number one, shamaha, control of the mind. Damaha, control of the senses. Tapaha, austerity, those who feel naturally inclined to austerity. Shaucham, purity, and purity here means both external purity, that means you should keep yourself clean, keep your clothes clean, and internal purity, which means keep the mind pure and clean. Shantihi, the spiritual realization. These are people who the highest goal in their life will always be spiritual realization, God realization. These are the inherent qualities of Brahmanas. Again, these are not hereditary Brahmins. Don't get it confused with the hereditary Brahmins. These are people who are naturally inclined to intellectual and spiritual matters and who are very sattvic. Okay, so that's one category. The next category is the category of the Kshatriyas. Bhagavan Krishna in Shloka 43, the next Shloka of chapter 18, he explains the qualities of Kshatriya. He says, Shauryam tejo dhritihi dakshyam yuddhe chapi apalayanam danam ishvara bhavascha kshatram karma swabhavajam. So I'm not going to explain each of these, but the main idea is that the people who have the swabhava kshatriya have the qualities of a natural leader. They're born leaders. They're born to lead groups of people, organizations. It can be the leader of a military, but it doesn't have to be. So see, kshatriya in that time, in Bhagavan Krishna's time, it may have been more narrowly defined in the sense of fighting in a war in the military, but we don't need to interpret in such a narrow way. We can interpret it in a broader way to mean those who have some rajoguna in them, which lead them to, that make them born leaders, but also that give them the qualities of a fighter in a broader sense, which means you can fight injustice. You can engage in protests against injustice in the world, these kinds of things. But also, Bhagavan Krishna mentions dhanam is another quality in the kshatriya. It means there's a natural generosity in kshatriyas. They have a natural tendency to help others and to be leaders of other people. So you have to analyze yourself and ask yourself, which category do I fall into? The third category, according to Bhagavan Krishna, is the Vaishya category. He says, Krishigo Rakshavanijam Vaishya Karma Swabhavajam, which means these are people who are naturally inclined to occupations like farming or trade, any kind of sort of economic transactions like owning a business, owning a hotel, things like that. Some people are naturally inclined to engage in that kind of work. Those people would fall into the Vaishya category. And then there's the Shudra category. Paricharyatmakam karma Shudrasyapi Swabhavajam, which means there's some people who feel naturally inclined to serve others. That's their swabhava. They are the Shudras. And sometimes people make the mistake of thinking that the word Shudra has negative connotations, that Shudra is a very low thing. It's not at all low. None of these are higher and lower. These are just different categories which suit different people based on their inherent tendencies and their behavior. This is the basic idea. And what Bhagavan Krishna says, whether you fall into the Brahmana category or Kshatriya category or Vaishya category or Shudra category, any one of you can attain the highest goal of life, which is God realization, by performing the duties in accordance with your swabhava to the best of your ability, and by giving up the fruits to God, and by doing everything as a worship of Bhagavan, and by doing everything as a service to God and as a service to humanity. This is one of the most important teachings of the Bhagavad-gita. Now, another question may come up. Well, this Bhagavad-gita is a very old scripture, and Bhagavan Krishna lived in a different time, in a different historical context. So do these categories still apply now? This is one question that comes up. And one answer is that, see, we don't have to take everything that Bhagavan Krishna says about these four categories in a literal way. You already noticed that in the case of Kshatriyas, I gave it a broader interpretation to mean not just military people who are inclined to fight in the military in actual wars, but anybody who has a fighting spirit, or have the qualities of a leader. So we can do that with all of these categories, and we can update, we can modernize Bhagavan Krishna's descriptions of the four types of people: Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, and Shudras. And we also should be very careful not to think that this categorization is comprehensive. In fact, there are many subtypes within each of these four categories. There can be many different kinds of Brahmanas. There can be many different kinds of Kshatriyas. There are many different kinds of Vaishyas. There are also many different kinds of Shudras. So this would be very useful to do on your own. I'm not going to do it now, but as a nice psychological kind of exercise, you can ask yourself, what are the different kinds of Brahmanas? What are the different kinds of Kshatriyas? How many different ways can you be a leader? You can be the leader of an army. You can be the leader of a company by being a CEO, like Sundar Pichai in Google. You can be the leader of a great organization like the Ramakrishna Mission. Right now, Subiranandaji is the general secretary, and Smaranandaji is our president, Maharaj. So there are many different subcategories within each of these four broad categories. This is another thing to keep in mind. Another question comes up. Bhagavan Krishna so many times is saying that it's better for us to perform duties which accord with our swadharma, our swabhava. But why? What is the logic behind them? Why does Bhagavan Krishna emphasize this so much? I will answer this question from 3 different standpoints. First, from the social standpoint, from the standpoint of society. The idea is that if each of us performs the work that we are naturally inclined toward and that we are naturally good at, we will be able to benefit society in the best possible way. This is very logical. The idea is that if I do something that doesn't suit my nature, I won't do a very good job, and my heart won't be in it, and other people will not get the benefit that from the work that I'm doing, right? If I'm inclined to be a doctor and I end up being a lawyer, I will not be as good a lawyer, and I will not be able to do as well in the court cases and the other work I do as a lawyer. But if I'm inclined to be a doctor and I become a doctor, then look, I'll be helping more patients, I'll be saving more lives, right? This is the idea. That's from the standpoint of society. But there are 2 other standpoints from which doing the work which accords with our nature is very beneficial. The second standpoint is the standpoint of what I would call human flourishing, or simply human happiness or fulfillment. Doing the work that we're most suited to makes us happy in a deep sense and makes us fulfilled. It makes us content in life, right? Because one of the big problems now in modern society is depression, anxiety, stress. And so many people are taking medicine for depression and all these things. Bhagavan Krishna says, one of the main reasons people become depressed is that they are not doing work in accordance with their swabhava, their swadharma. A lot of work has been done on this issue in the field of what's called positive psychology. And I want to mention a few of the great insights made by these modern positive psychologists. One of them is Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, something like that. It's a very difficult to pronounce his name. He came up with this concept of flow. And this is how he defined flow. Flow is a mental state in which a person performing some activity is fully immersed in a feeling of energized focus, full involvement, and enjoyment in the process of the activity. In essence, flow is characterized by the complete absorption in what one does and the resulting transformation in one's sense of time. What does he mean? What it means is, if we do work that best accords with our inherent nature, our swabhava, we will enter the state which he calls flow. We'll be in the zone. We'll be in a state of flow, which means that it's as if our mind is fully engaged in that activity. We are completely happy. We're so happy and absorbed that we lose sense of time. We lose track of time. And we feel energized, and we feel focused on that activity, and we derive meaning from that activity. This is what this psychologist taught, this idea that this is exactly what Bhagavan Krishna is talking about. Swabhava niyatam karma is work that brings us into the state of flow, okay? And these recent psychologists, they help to explain how swabhava niyatam karma, how work that accords with our nature helps bring us into a state of flow. What these psychologists say is that the best kind of work for us is work that is challenging, but at the same time, work that that matches with our skill set. So we need to be up to the challenge. We have to have a certain set of talents and skills that can help us to engage in this challenging work and to help us to meet the challenges of this work. You see, so if let's take the case of being a doctor. This can be very challenging work. Let's say a surgeon, the work of a surgeon. The work of a surgeon is very demanding, and not everybody is good at that kind of work. But if my swabhava is geared toward being a surgeon, then I will have a very good surgeon. So this is the ideal kind of work for me. If I have a skill set of a surgeon and I become a surgeon, this will kind of work that will bring me into the state of, this is also what Bhagavan Krishna says, engage in work which is in accordance with our swabhava, we'll be able to enter a state of flow. And in another shloka in the Bhagavad-gita in chapter 18, Bhagavan Krishna says, I think again, we can interpret this from the standpoint of modern psychology and this work on flow. Bhagavan Krishna says, Mukta Sango anahambadi, dhriti utsaha samanvitaha, sitya siddho nirvikaraha katta sattvika uchyate. How should we perform work? We should be sattvika workers. Sattvika workers, what are the characteristics? Bhagavan Krishna says, mukta sangaha, which means we should be unattached. Second, we should be anahambadi, which means we should not be egoistic about the work. We should, whatever we do it as a servant, as a child of God. But we should also do whatever actions we do in a spirit of dhriti and utsaha. Dhriti means with perseverance. We shouldn't take up an activity and then 5 minutes later we become bored and we give it up. Not like that. We should have dhriti. We should do whatever work is given to us to the best of our ability, and we should complete that work. And with utsaha, everything we should do with a spirit of enthusiasm, with energy. So this accords very nicely with modern work in positive psychology on flow. And sitya siddho nirvikaraha, which means whether we succeed or fail in the work, that's a secondary matter. We shouldn't worry about that. We should only care about doing the work to the best of our ability, and by doing that, we will enter into a state of flow. Our lives will become much happier. You'll find that we won't have to worry about becoming depressed anymore, because we're doing the kind of work that best suits our nature. And another modern psychologist in the field of positive psychology who talks about these kinds of issues is Martin Seligman. He has a nice book called Authentic Happiness. And in this book, his main thesis is this. This is a quotation. He says, authentic happiness, true happiness, comes from identifying and cultivating your most fundamental strengths and using them every day in work, love, play, and parenting. So see, what is Martin Seligman's main idea? His idea is that how do we achieve true happiness in life? He says we achieve this happiness by doing two things. Number one, we should identify our fundamental strengths, which he calls our signature strengths, our main strengths. And number two, after identifying these strengths, we should work to cultivate those strengths and identify the work that will best help us to cultivate our inherent strengths, our signature strengths. This seems very simple, but it's a very, very powerful idea. And it's one that Bhagavan Krishna also taught in the Bhagavad-gita so many centuries ago. This is exactly what Bhagavan Krishna meant when he said, Swabhava niyatam karma. When you do work that best suits your nature, that best suits your particular talents and skill set, you will be happy in life, but you will not just be happy in life, you will also attain spiritual fulfillment. This is the beauty of Bhagavan Krishna's teaching. I'll mention one more statement of a few other statements from Martin Seligman. This comes from his book, Authentic Happiness. Seligman says, I do not believe that you should devote overly much effort to correcting your weaknesses. Rather, I believe that the highest success in living and the deepest emotional satisfaction comes from building and using your signature strengths. This is a very important statement that he's making. And again, I think this is perfectly in line with what Bhagavan Krishna taught so many centuries ago. What this psychologist Martin Seligman is saying is that, see, some of us make ourselves miserable by not recognizing what our own strengths are. And instead of focusing on cultivating our strengths, we're trying to imitate other people. We're looking at what other people are doing. We're saying, oh, this person is a doctor, this person is a lawyer, this person is, I want to be a doctor, I want to be a lawyer. Not because it comes from my heart that I'm passionate about being a doctor or I'm suited to being a doctor, but because, oh, my society says that being a doctor is very prestigious. Doctors make a lot of money. This is a terrible idea. And instead of doing that, instead of imitating other people and constantly trying to somehow correct our weaknesses, maybe I'm not suited to be a doctor, but let me try. Let me spend all my waking hours trying to become a good doctor. This is self-defeating. And ultimately, you're going to waste a lot of energy and you're going to make yourself miserable. First, identify what are your unique skills. Every single human being has a unique set of skills, has a unique set of talents. Identify what those talents are. And then you should find the work that best taps into, that helps you cultivate those unique talents that you have. This is the secret of happiness in life, in this life, and attaining the highest goal in life, which is God realization. So I wanted to emphasize this because sometimes we feel that when we study these scriptures like the Bhagavad-gita, that these are just old spiritual texts that they don't apply to the modern day. But I think Bhagavad-gita has profound contemporary relevance. And in fact, it's a kind of modern psychological manual and spiritual manual. So there are so many interesting and important connections that we can make between the teachings of Bhagavan Krishna and the Bhagavad-gita and the insights of modern psychology, the insights of modern neuroscience, the insights of modern philosophy. So many things. There's so many things which I can't discuss today, but I wanted to point this out. Now, another question that comes up, I'm now setting aside the great teachings on Karma Yoga and focusing on Bhagavan Krishna's teachings on Bhakti Yoga and Jnana Yoga, the yoga of devotion and the yoga of knowledge. What happens is another doubt comes into the mind of many spiritual aspirants. The doubt is, which of these yogas should I practice? And secondly, which one of these is higher? Is Bhakti Yoga higher or is Jnana Yoga higher? And in the history of Hindu thought, in the history of Vedanta, you'll find that different schools of Vedanta have argued about this for many, many centuries. Bhakti schools of Vedanta, like Vishishtadvaita Vedanta, like Achinta Bheda Veda Vedanta, Chaitanya school, like Vallabha Shuddha Dvaita Vedanta, Madhva Dvaita Vedanta, they claim that Bhakti Yoga is the highest spiritual practice. They say Jnana Yoga is a lower practice. Advaita Vedantans say the opposite. They say Jnana Yoga is the higher practice. Bhakti Yoga is a lower practice. And these arguments have been going on for centuries, these debates. And what happens nowadays, I find this in many cases, that people who practice bhakti, many devotees, even many sadhus, when they practice bhakti, they develop a kind of inferiority complex. They feel, I'm doing this bhakti, but because I'm a kind of inferior spiritual aspirant, I'm not good enough to practice Jnana Yoga. They get this mentality. They've internalized this traditional Advaita Vedantic way of thinking that I am practicing bhakti because I'm not high enough. I'm not evolved enough spiritually to practice Jnana Yoga, the yoga of knowledge, which is the higher practice. Jnana Yoga is like becoming a doctor. It's the most prestigious yoga, you know? Now, what does Bhagavan Krishna say about this? That's what I want to first explain. Then I'll talk about what Sri Ramakrishna said about Bhakti Yoga and Jnana Yoga. Bhagavan Krishna answers the question very beautifully. Arjuna had this question. It's the first sloka of chapter 12 of Bhagavad-gita. Arjuna asks the following question. Evam satata yukta ye bhaktas tvam paryupasate ye chapyaksharam avyaktam tesham ke yoga vittama. Who are the greater knowers of yoga? Who is the better spiritual aspirant? Is it the people who worship and love you, Krishna, the personal God, or those who meditate and concentrate on the impersonal absolute? This is Arjuna's question. Who is better, the bhakti yogi or the jnana yogi? And Bhagavan Krishna gives a very direct answer in the next shloka, shloka 2 of chapter 12. He says, Maya Vesha Manoye Mam Nitya Yukta Upasate Shraddhaya Parayopetas Te Me Yukta Tamamataha. Bhagavan Krishna gives a very, very clear and decisive answer to Arjuna's doubt. He says, those who worship me with absolute faith, with their minds fixed intently on me, with steadfast love, bhakti, I consider to be the most perfect in yoga. So Bhagavan Krishna clearly says here that bhakti yoga is superior to jnana yoga. Okay? That this is the best path. Not that jnana yoga is not also a possible path, but bhakti yoga is a better path. Now, Shankaracharya, when he's interpreting this shloka, he's in big trouble because he's an Advaita Vedantin. And according to his philosophy, jnana yoga is higher than bhakti yoga. So he has to do a lot of text torturing to explain these shlokas. I won't go into the details now. I don't have the time and it becomes a little bit technical. But this is a good example of what Swamiji meant when he said that when Shankara was faced with passages in the scriptures which did not agree with his philosophy, he had to torture those shlokas, those verses. So Swamiji said, don't torture any of these shlokas, just take them very naturally, take them as they are. And what Bhagavan Krishna says is that Bhakti Yoga is better than Jnana Yoga. Why? Because anybody can practice it. You don't need to be eligible to practice Bhakti Yoga. And it's a wonderful path, it's an easy path, and it's a wonderful path to take us to the highest goal. Now, another doubt may come up. This is with regard to the 5th shloka or shlokas 3 through 5 of chapter 12. Bhagavan Krishna then goes on to explain this path of Jnana Yoga. Why is it not as good as Bhakti Yoga? He says basically, I won't read the Sanskrit, but he says it's a very difficult path. Kleshodikadarastem sham abhyakta satyachetasam. Those who practice Jnana Yoga face many, many difficulties. It's much more difficult because it requires that you be completely free from body consciousness. This is what makes the path of Jnana Yoga so difficult. Now, what does Bhagavan Sri Ramakrishna say? He says something very, very similar. This is what Bhagavan Sri Ramakrishna says. He says, to follow Jnana Yoga, the yoga of knowledge, in this age, in this Kali Yuga, is very difficult. First, a man's life depends entirely on food, onnogoto pran in Bangla. That means he has a lot of body consciousness in this age. Second, he has a short span of life. Third, he can by no means get rid of body consciousness. And the knowledge of Brahman is impossible without the destruction of body consciousness. The Jnani says, I am Brahman, I am not the body, I am beyond hunger and thirst, disease and grief, birth and death, pleasure and pain. Then Sri Ramakrishna says, how can you be a Jnani if you are conscious of disease, grief, pain, pleasure, and the like? A thorn enters your flesh. Blood flows from the wound, and you suffer very badly from the pain. But nevertheless, if you are a Jnani, you must be able to say, why, there is no thorn in my flesh at all. Nothing is the matter with me. Therefore, Bhakti Yoga is prescribed for this age. By following this path, one comes to God more easily than by following the others. One can undoubtedly reach God by following the paths of Jnana and Karma, but they are very difficult paths. Bhakti Yoga is the religion for this age. Look at how beautifully Sri Ramakrishna's teachings tally with the teachings of Sri Krishna in chapter 12 of the Bhagavad-gita. Bhagavan Krishna tells Arjuna, Bhakti Yoga is better than Jnana Yoga because it's easier, and it's like the royal path to God realization. Not that you cannot achieve God realization through Jnana Yoga or Karma Yoga, but this is the highest path, and it's the easiest path. And Bhagavan Sri Ramakrishna says exactly the same thing. It's not that through Jnana Yoga you cannot attain the highest goal in life, but it's much more difficult. Now, another doubt may come up that, well, wait a minute. Even Sri Ramakrishna is saying that the path of Jnana Yoga is more difficult. And many times we think that if something is more difficult, it's somehow higher. PhD is higher than bachelor's degree, and the PhD is more difficult than the bachelor's degree. Some of us think in this way. But Bhagavan Krishna does not mean this. And Sri Ramakrishna also does not mean this. And I want to explain what their standpoint by using a simple example. You are trying to get up to the roof of a house. And there are 3 ways of climbing up to the roof. One way is to climb up a staircase. And it takes you, just assume, it takes you 10 seconds to climb up the staircase. There's also an elevator, a lift. And if I take the lift, I can reach the roof in 5 seconds. And there's also a rope hanging from the roof all the way down to the floor, the ground floor. If I can climb the rope, but if I climb the rope as fast as I can, I will reach the roof in 20 seconds. If I take the staircase, I'll reach the roof in 10 seconds. If I take the elevator, I'll reach the roof in 5 seconds. If I climb a rope, I will reach the roof in 20 seconds. Notice that climbing the rope here, it's the hardest of the 3 means. It's the most difficult because not everybody has the upper body strength to climb a rope. Most people don't. Not only that, it also takes the longest amount of time. It takes 20 seconds, whereas climbing the staircase takes half the time. And taking the elevator takes 1/4 the time. So if we look at this example, what is the best way? The best way in the sense of how can we get to the roof the most quickly? and with the least effort. This is by taking the elevator, and everybody can take the elevator. You don't have to have a lot of upper body strength. So in this example, Bhakti Yoga corresponds to the elevator. It is the best, the easiest, and the swiftest path to God realization. And Jnana Yoga is like climbing a rope to the roof. Some people can do it, those who have sufficient upper body strength, which means what Sri Ramakrishna said, those who are almost entirely free from body consciousness. But even for them, the path is very difficult. And see, just as we can, those people will by climbing a rope, will reach the roof in 20 seconds, which is much longer than taking the staircase or taking the elevator. Jnana yogis they can reach the roof, they can attain the highest goal, but it will be very difficult. There are a lot of challenges along the way. So this is why Bhakti Yoga is the best path. This is what both Bhagavan Krishna and Bhagavan Sri Ramakrishna is saying. So never feel that the practice of bhakti is a lower practice. That is the opposite of Sri Ramakrishna's teachings. That is the opposite of Bhagavan Krishna's teachings. And I wanted to conclude now. I wanted to wrap this up in a few minutes. I wanted to emphasize one very, very important thing. Remember that Bhagavan Krishna and the Bhagavad-gita, especially the Bhagavad-gita, is not only a text teaching us Brahma Vidya, which means it's teaching us the knowledge of Brahman, the highest spiritual truths. It is also a yoga shastra. It is a spiritual manual for sadhakas, for spiritual aspirants. That's extremely important to keep in mind. So by having the correct understanding of the Bhagavad-gita, we can become better spiritual aspirants. And the best way to understand and assimilate the teachings of the Bhagavad-gita is to try to practice Bhagavan Krishna's teachings in our daily lives. And in this context, something that Swami Turiyananji said is very, very helpful. Swami Turiyananji, who was a direct disciple of Sri Ramakrishna, he was once asked, Maharaj, how do you study the Bhagavad-gita? And he gave a very nice answer. He said, I study one shloka, and I try to practice that one shloka to the best of my ability. Until I have fully mastered that one shloka, the practice of that one shloka, I don't go on to the next shloka. So this is a very high level kind of study of the Bhagavad-gita, because he was a great realized soul. But he sets a good example for all of us. Remember that the priority should always be on spiritual practice, not on just book learning, not on getting into intellectual debates about the meaning of the Gita, not like that. The main purpose of studying the Gita is to make spiritual progress and to help us in our day-to-day sadhana. So let us pray to the holy trio, Sri Ramakrishna, Holy Mother Sharada Devi, Swami Vivekananda, and Bhagavan Sri Krishna, the great teacher of the Bhagavad-gita, and Ma Saraswati, that we can understand the true meaning of the Bhagavad-gita by studying it and practicing it in the light of Sri Ramakrishna, so that we can attain the highest goal of God realization in this very life. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Tat Sat. Shri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.
ॐ स्थापकाय च धर्मस्य सर्वधर्मस्वरूपिणे अवतारवरिष्ठाय रामकृष्णाय ते नमः। वसुदेवसुतं देवं कंसचाणूरमर्दनं देवकी परमानन्दं कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुम्। Now we shall chant some of the verses from the Bhagavad-gita. Before that, we will chant one of the meditation verses on the Bhagavad-gita. Om Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kamsachanuramardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum. Now today we are going to chant the 59th verse of the second chapter. 59th verse of the second chapter. Shri Bhagavan Vacha the blessed Lord said to Arjuna, Vishaya vinivartante, Vishaya vinivartante, Niraharasya dehinaha, Niraharasya dehinaha, Rasavarjam rasopyasya, Rasavarjam rasopyasya, Parandrishtva nivartate, Parandrishtva nivartate. The simple meaning of this verse, 59th verse is, from the abstinent soul, sense objects fall away. If you fast, then your senses become weak, your mind become weak, and temporarily they will keep quiet. But not the taste for the sense objects. The desires will be still there lurking within, waiting to get strength back. When you take the food back, again they will rush. So the solution of fasting and other things is only temporary. How can you permanently conquer your senses, your desires, and everything? Lord Krishna is telling, when the supreme truth is realized, Parandruštva, when the supreme truth is realized, even the taste departs. So we'll go to the next verse, that is the 60th verse. Sri Bhagavan Vacha. Now we are chanting the 60th verse. Please repeat it after me. Yatato hyapi kaunteya, Yatato hyapi kaunteya, Purushasya vipaschitaha, Purushasya vipaschitaha, Indriyani pramathini, Indriyani pramathini, Haranti prasabham manaha, Haranti prasabham manaha. O son of Kunti, Lord Krishna is telling Arjuna, the turbulent senses do violently draw away the mind of even a strong person, a discerning person, intelligent person who is earnestly striving in the spiritual path. So you should be very, very careful. You should not allow the senses and mind to wander off as it likes. You should always keep it under control. Now we are going to the 61st verse. Shall we chant it? 61st. Sri Bhagavan Vacha. Tani sarvani sanyamya, Tani sarvani sanyamya, Yukta asita matparaha, Yukta asita matparaha, Vashehi yasyendriyani, Vashehi yasyendriyani, Tasya prajna pratishtita, Tasya prajna pratishtita. So that's why do not allow your senses to run to the sense objects and to fulfill desires. Having controlled them all, one should become entirely devoted to me. You should depend upon me. You should entirely be devoted to me. He whose senses are under control, his wisdom is firmly set. So Lord Krishna is giving the secret of how you can control your senses, you can control your mind, and you will not be disturbed by the senses. So he's telling, having controlled all the senses, one should become entirely devoted to me. By devotion to the Lord, you can easily control. We will go to the next verse, that is I think we have one. 62nd verse. We will go to the 62nd verse. Please let us chant. Dhyayato vishayan pumsaha, Dhyayato vishayan pumsaha, Sankasteshu pajayate, Sangasteshu pajayate, Sangat sanjayate kamaha, Sangat sanjayate kamaha, Kamat krodho vijayate, Kamat krodho vijayate. In this verse, Lord Krishna is telling how anger comes to us. What is the cause of our anger? How to control anger? In one who dwells longingly on sense objects, when you think of the sense objects, the desired objects of the external world, if you constantly think, then you will get longing to obtain it. An inclination towards them, an attachment towards the sense objects is generated. This inclination develops into desire and deep desire, deep rooted desire, and that intense desire begets anger. Whenever you cannot fulfill that desire or there is a competition, then you will get angry. So, how anger is generated? What is the root cause of anger has been given out by Lord Krishna. Now we will chant the last verse for today, that is the 63rd verse. Krodad bhavati sammohaha. Please repeat it. Krodad bhavati sammohaha. Sammohat smriti vibramaha. Sammohat smriti vibramaha. Smritibramshat buddhinasho. Smritibramshat buddhinasho. Buddhinashat pranashyati. Buddhinashat pranashyati. So, in these two verses, Lord Krishna is giving wonderful knowledge of our mind, how our mind behaves, how we get angry, how our anger rises. So, what is this 63rd verse? Anger, when you have allowed the mind to that level of getting angry, so this anger generates delusion, confusion in the mind, and delusion results in loss of memory. Then you will forget all the good things, morality, ethics you have learnt in your life, all through your life. The words, the advice of the seniors, your father and mother, all those good teachings will be forgotten. Why? Because anger generates delusion, and delusion results in the loss of all these good memories. Loss of memory brings about the destruction of discriminative faculty. Then your discriminative faculty, that is discerning, understanding between what is right and what is wrong, what is good and what is bad. So all that power will be lost. Your discriminative intelligence will be lost. And loss of this power, discriminative intelligence, spells ruin to a man. So how a man gets ruined? By thinking of the sense objects, allowing the senses to go freely, or having desire, karma, intense desire, how anger arises, how you get into confusion, how then your discerning intellect is lost. So then it is destruction. So, how to be careful, how to control our mind has been shown by Lord Krishna in all these verses. So, we will stop the study of Bhagavad-gita now. We'll go to the next program, that is the bhajans. Thank you. Namaste. We will chant one of the meditation verses. Om Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langhayate Girim Yat Kripa Tamaham Vande Parama Ananda Madhavam. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Tat Sat. Shri Krishna Arpanamastu.
नंदलाला मुरली बंसीवाला मुरली बंसीवाला कृष्ण गोपाला जय नंदलाला मुरली बंसीवाला मुरली बंसीवाला कृष्ण गोपाला जय नंदलाला मुरली बंसीवाला कृष्ण गोपाला जय नंदलाला मुरली बंसीवाला मुरली बंसीवाला मुरली बंसीवाला मुरली बंसीवाला मुरारी जय गिरधारी राधे राधे श्याम राधे राधे
राधे राधे राधे राधे गोविंद राधे 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 गोविंद वृंदावन चंद वृंदावन चंद अनाथ नाथ दीना बंधु राधे गोविंद अनाथ नाथ दीना बंधु राधे गोविंद राधे 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 गोविंद राधे 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 गोविंद वृंदावन चंद वृंदावन चंद अनाथ नाथ दीना बंधु राधे गोविंद अनाथ नाथ दीना बंधु राधे गोविंद नंद किशोर नवनीत चोर राधे गोविंद नंद किशोर नवनीत चोर राधे गोविंद वृंदावन चंद वृंदावन चंद अनाथ नाथ दीना बंधु राधे गोविंद अनाथ नाथ दीना बंधु राधे गोविंद पुराण पुरुष पुण्यश्लोक राधे गोविंद पुराण पुरुष पुण्यश्लोक राधे गोविंद वृंदावन चंद वृंदावन चंद अनाथ नाथ दीना बंधु राधे गोविंद अनाथ नाथ दीना बंधु राधे गोविंद पंडरीनाथ पांडुरंग राधे गोविंद पंडरीनाथ पांडुरंग राधे गोविंद वृंदावन चंद वृंदावन चंद अनाथ नाथ दीना बंधु राधे गोविंद अनाथ नाथ दीना बंधु राधे गोविंद जय जय विठ्ठल जय हरि विठ्ठल राधे गोविंद जय जय विठ्ठल जय हरि विठ्ठल राधे गोविंद वृंदावन चंद वृंदावन चंद अनाथ नाथ दीना बंधु राधे गोविंद अनाथ नाथ दीना बंधु राधे गोविंद राधे 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 गोविंद राधे 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 गोविंद वृंदावन चंद वृंदावन चंद अनाथ नाथ दीना बंधु राधे गोविंद अनाथ नाथ दीना बंधु राधे गोविंद नंद किशोर नवनीत चोर राधे गोविंद नंद किशोर नवनीत चोर राधे गोविंद वृंदावन चंद वृंदावन चंद अनाथ नाथ दीना बंधु राधे गोविंद अनाथ नाथ दीना बंधु राधे गोविंद पुराण पुरुष पुण्य श्लोक राधे गोविंद पुराण पुरुष पुण्य श्लोक राधे गोविंद वृंदावन चंद वृंदावन चंद अनाथ नाथ दीना बंधु राधे गोविंद अनाथ नाथ दीना बंधु राधे गोविंद पंढरीनाथ पांडुरंग राधे गोविंद पंढरीनाथ पांडुरंग राधे गोविंद वृंदावन चंद वृंदावन चंद अनाथ नाथ दीना बंधु राधे गोविंद अनाथ नाथ दीना बंधु राधे गोविंद जय जय विठ्ठल जय हरि विठ्ठल राधे गोविंद जय जय विठ्ठल जय हरि विठ्ठल राधे गोविंद वृंदावन चंद वृंदावन चंद अनाथ नाथ दीना बंधु राधे गोविंद अनाथ नाथ दीना बंधु राधे गोविंद राधे 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 गोविंद राधे 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 गोविंद वृंदावन चंद वृंदावन चंद अनाथ नाथ दीना बंधु राधे गोविंद अनाथ नाथ दीना बंधु राधे गोविंद राधे 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 गोविंद वृंदावन चंद 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 अनाथ नाथ दीना बंधु राधे गोविंद 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 अनाथ नाथ दीना बंधु राधे गोविंद
आरती कुंज बिहारी की, श्री गिरधर कृष्ण मुरारी की। आरती कुंज बिहारी की, श्री गिरधर कृष्ण मुरारी की।
आरती कुंज बिहारी की, श्री गिरधर कृष्ण मुरारी की।
गले में बैजंती माला माला, बजावे मुरली मधुर बाला बाला। श्रवण में कुंडल झलकाला झलकाला। नंद के नंद मोहन ब्रिज चंद, हरि सुख कंद।
राधिका रमण बिहारी की, श्री गिरधर कृष्ण मुरारी की।
आरती कुंज बिहारी की, श्री गिरधर कृष्ण मुरारी की।
आरती कुंज बिहारी की, श्री गिरधर कृष्ण मुरारी की।
गगन सम अंग कांति काली काली, श्री राधा चमक रही आली आली। लतन में ठाड़े बनमाली बनमाली। भ्रमर सी अलक कस्तूरी तिलक, चंद्र सी झलक।
ललित छवि श्यामा प्यारी की, श्री कृष्ण मुरारी की।
आरती कुंज बिहारी की, श्री गिरधर कृष्ण मुरारी की।
आरती कुंज बिहारी की, श्री गिरधर कृष्ण मुरारी।
कनकमय मोर मुकुट विलसे विलसे, देवता दर्शन को तरसे तरसे। गगन सो सुमन बहुत बरसे बरसे। बजत मुरचंग मधुर मृदंग, ग्वालिनी संग।
लाज रख गोप कुमारी की, श्री गिरधर कृष्ण मुरारी की।
आरती कुंज बिहारी की, श्री गिरधर कृष्ण मुरारी की।
आरती कुंज बिहारी की, श्री गिरधर कृष्ण मुरारी की।
जहाँ पे प्रगट भई गंगा गंगा, कलुष कली हारिणी श्री गंगा गंगा। स्मरण से होत मोह भंगा भंगा। बसी शिव शीश जटा के बीच, हरे अघ कीच।
चरण छवि श्री बनवारी की, श्री गिरधर कृष्ण मुरारी की।
आरती कुंज बिहारी की, श्री गिरधर कृष्ण मुरारी की।
आरती कुंज बिहारी की, श्री गिरधर कृष्ण मुरारी की।
चमकती उज्ज्वल तट रेनो रेनो, बाज रही वृंदावन बेनो बेनो। चहु दिश गोपी ग्वाल धेनु धेनु। हसत मृदु मंद चांदिनी चंद, कटत भव फंद।
तेरे सुन दीन भिखारी की, श्री गिरधर कृष्ण मुरारी की।
आरती कुंज बिहारी की, श्री गिरधर कृष्ण मुरारी की।
आरती कुंज बिहारी की, श्री गिरधर कृष्ण मुरारी की।
आरती आरती कुंज बिहारी की, श्री गिरधर कृष्ण मुरारी की।
आरती कुंज बिहारी की, श्री गिरधर कृष्ण मुरारी की। आरती कुंज बिहारी की, श्री गिरधर कृष्ण मुरारी की। आरती कुंज बिहारी की, श्री गिरधर कृष्ण मुरारी की।
Om Namo Narayana. We thank you all for joining us for today's Krishna Ashtami program and pray you have found comfort during this time of prayer. The Johannesburg Sub-Center hosts the Hinduism for Children's classes, which are held every Sunday morning from 9:30 a.m. to 11 a.m. All are welcome to attend. On behalf of Swami Swatmaramanandaji Maharaj and the officials of the Johannesburg Sub-Center, we humbly thank you for joining us for today's Krishna Ashtami program and look forward to your company for tomorrow's program. Om Namo Narayanaya.